So now for one of the most imaginative and creative items in the entire Zelda franchise, the spinner. This is pretty cool. Basically, it basically allows you to functionally grind on rails, like in the Sonic Adventure games. Of course, I guess it works differently, and that's not like in the Sonic Adventure games and beyond. There were rails in the center of like platforming areas, and you jump onto them, and then you would ride them forwards. With these rails, they're on walls, so that's a pretty big difference already. Like they're on walls, they're not like you're going on top of them. But other than that, it's like after playing Unleashed, yeah, it's basically the same general concept. Because there's actually like rail switching. You jump from one of these rails to another one, going from wall to wall. The problem is that the camera in this game doesn't really work for that. It doesn't really do enough to let you see enough of what's ahead of you. Like, the problem is that when you're grinding on a rail in this game, it feels like the camera's too far back. Like, it should be closer to you, like it is in Sonic Unleashed. Like, that would be one of the only times when that would actually be a good idea. But instead, it's too far away from you, so you can't see enough what's ahead of you. Which really sucks when you're expected to jump off rails to avoid, like, basically rail spikes, the things that move around on it. Like, that's a big problem. They move around on it, which makes it very difficult to gauge when exactly you need to jump from wall to wall. The rail spikes on the grind rails in the Sonic games never move around. They just stay there, and because they stay there, I fell down there by accident, but at least I got a chest. I didn't even know that I was supposed to go over here because the camera wasn't showing me. Like, it was so focused on me being on the wall, they didn't zoom around to tell me I should go there. See, this is exactly why, like, for one, these rail spikes are too close together, so you're guaranteed to switch onto one from the other. And two, they move around, which makes it kind of anxiety-inducing trying to dodge them. And, like, this is the first ever instance of you dodging rail spikes in this game. So, difficulty spike much? At least have them, like, be stationary for the first time, and then make them move later. What's the point of having to button mash in these things? You never have to do that normally. Normally with a spinner you just press the button and then you go. Using the spinner when not right next to a rail is really pointless because you don't really, like, you just slow down. Like, you go forwards for a little bit and then you slow down. It would have been cool to, like, use it as a hovercraft, make you have a method of moving that's faster than normal, but then you'd always have to have it equipped to your 2 item slots. You can't really afford to waste one of them just to have a faster way of moving. Like, it just sucks. What's the point of it slowing down after a while? It's hovering. Like, why would it slow down? You know what really sucks? Accidentally running over a fairy or walking onto it because you didn't know that it was going to show up. How are they supposed to know that breaking that pot would give me a fairy? They should have pots with fairies in them, have like fairy images on them so you know they're going to give you fairies. Like Wind Waker did it right because they would always have pots with fairies in them right outside of the entrance to the boss room. But this game doesn't do that. Like, you saw a fairy pot just randomly there, and these skulls don't have fairies at all in them. So, that's annoying. It's kind of weird that skulls are being used instead of pots sometimes. Like, it made a bit more sense in Link to the Past, where the pots became skulls in the Dark World because dark and edginess, I guess. But here, like, there's no reason that you'd find rupees and arrows and stuff in skulls. At least with pots, it made a bit more sense because pots are literally made for storing things. I don't really understand why you had to walk up to it specifically and only then does the boss intro happen. So, you might be thinking, like if you play this game for the first time, you might be thinking that this dungeon will be the final one. But then Zant shows up, and he just, like, he uses the skull thing as a way to attack you, and then he leaves. Which should definitely clue you into the fact that there's more dungeons after this. Which should definitely clue you into the fact that you're not going straight to the Twilight Room after this. Well, maybe it shouldn't, because, like, I guess the entire game has been building up anyways to you going to the Twilight Realm and fighting Zant at the end. Because, like, when you went into the linear Twilight, she said, like mischievously, or is it? Like, is this the last of the Twilight you'll be seeing? So it's clear that even if you play the game for the first time, you're going to know you're heading to the Twilight Realm anyway, so never mind. This boss, it's not very fun for the first phase at all. Why are these enemy soldiers even here? This would be so much more fun if you didn't have these stupid bones and enemy soldiers that dickishly pop out of the sand. You have no way of knowing where they're going to show up before they show up, other than memorizing where they are through trial and error. Why are you able to bounce off so many things? And like, I just narrowly missed that neck of his, or whatever it's called. Like, these guys are such an inconvenience. Why can't I just target an enemy and then automatically have the spinner run towards it? Like, this boss would have been fun if it weren't for the stupid soldiers. Like, they just feel very arbitrary, and like, they're only there to pad out the boss fight. Also, what's also arbitrary are the rail spikes. Because you need to use this grind rail to attack the boss. So why the hell are there rail spikes here? It's not like there's any walls to switch to. It's not like there's a whole challenge built around switching rails in order to avoid the spikes, like later. Like, that's the thing, this boss starts out very standard, and then it becomes less standard. But still standard because they're still using the dungeon item in order to beat it. But it's a lot more memorable after this point. It's just like, why didn't Zant get him out from the sand? Like, he can barely even attack you at all here. He's a sitting duck. Why did Zant not, like, sink all the sand immediately and have you just fight phase 2 right away? Phase 1 is just padding, really. Like, the sand just sinks away like magic, making you think that you beat the boss, and like, why did it sink away if the boss wasn't dead? And why did the boss play dead? Why did it, like, lie down motionless for such a long time, other than to, like, troll you, I guess? But it's so stupid. Why doesn't the boss just attack you while you're trapped using the spinner over and over to raise that platform? Like, he has a perfect free shot there. And if he did that, then Link wouldn't be able to fully raise the platforms, and so he wouldn't be able to actually defeat the boss, because he wouldn't be able to make the arena suitable for fighting it, and he would just knock him off it over and over again. But yeah, this is definitely a lot cooler of a boss fight. It actually takes proper usage of the whole rail switching mechanic, because it has rail spikes, and you actually switch walls to avoid them, rather than only being able to jump off of the rail and, like, miss your opportunity to attack the boss, and then you have to awkwardly get onto it again. Like, that's another thing, there was quicksand that slowed you down in that previous phase. So it's not like you could easily walk onto them either. I feel like doing the quick spin consecutively and consistently is actually harder in this game. I'm making it look easy here. I think it has to do with where the camera is facing. Like, if the camera's directly behind you, you're probably more likely to do it consistently in that camera angle. Like, I think if the camera angle is wrong, you'll be more likely to accidentally do the thrusts or something instead. I don't know. Like, I remember I showed off in Wind Waker that I was able to do a quick spin 8 times in a row, easily. But in this game, sure, you don't get locked into combos as easily, but you still mess up trying to do quick spins easier. I think maybe they changed the timing on the combos, so you don't get locked into them as easily when you don't want to be. I really hate how bosses don't have health bars in this game, because, like, again, sometimes the bosses can feel padded out, and like that's especially true when you get cheated out of a hit. So, like, it'd be nice to always know how close you are to completing it. Like, sometimes they can be, like what I showed off there was sometimes that there can be a rail spike, and then there's immediately another rail spike on the wall that you jumped onto, and you have to jump off it again. And if you keep jumping, then you're going to end up so far below that you might end up missing your opportunity to attack the boss entirely. But yeah, that was a pretty cool boss. Listen to the audio cues for when it's breathing fire, and that's how you'll know when to jump at it. Because if you wait too long, then it'll just breathe fire on you and cheat you out of your opportunity to attack it. Well, I guess you do kind of, like, I guess it's a skill-based thing, but still. It's definitely the coolest boss in this game. Makes me wish that you were able to actually, like, refight any boss you wanted. Like in Skyward Sword, where there was this boss rush challenge. Although I don't think that it should be mandatory to beat all the bosses again to get an item. Like, that just feels like blatant padding for any completionists. And here I'm showing off that you can't actually pick up heart containers with sword anymore. So that's kind of an arbitrary change. But something I was about to mention about the fairies the last time we saw them is that if you run over a fairy with full health in this game, you don't pick it up. But in Skyward Sword, they undid that change completely. It just feels so inconsistent. It's like they didn't really learn from. Like it's good that you can't waste a fairy anymore. Although it's very easy to waste a fairy regardless, because chances are you're not going to have full health when you run to a fairy when you don't want to. Like when you're not expecting it. So I still ended up wasting a fairy because I guess I had less than full health at the time. This is the most inconveniently placed portal ever. Well, it's not that it's inconvenient, it's that why aren't there more of them? Because here's the thing, you warp here, and like why isn't there a Bublin's Fortress warp as well? Because the thing is, say that you warp here so that you can get through the Bublin Fortress, like so you can get to the entrance of Arbiter's ground, so that you can get the treasure chest that you missed. You're not going to be able to get there, because the problem with this warp portal's placement is that sure, it's good for letting you quickly get to the mirror, which is good and all, but there really should have been a portal at the entrance to Arbiter's grounds as well. That would have been a lot more convenient, because you can't backtrack from here. The only way that you can get out of here is to warp. Because, like, you can't backtrack from the boss room to the rest of the dungeon. It's just not possible. Like, you can get to the door, but it's not going to open. And I don't think, like, one of the unique things about Arbiter's grounds is that after you beat the boss, Midna doesn't create a portal out of the dungeon for you that will allow you to go back to the entrance. So you can't go into that portal and go back to the entrance of the dungeon. As a result, it just feels really annoying that, like, the desert in this game is so gigantic, and yet there's really nothing to do in it. Like, there's a few underground grottos, I guess. Although they're just, like, slugfests, so whatever. I think there's a couple, like, one Poe Like, you want to go back to Gerudo Desert, but there's not nearly enough warps in it. I unintentionally forgot about the warp in the Gerudo Mesa, and because of that, I wasn't able to get back to it from here. I had to take the cannon to the desert all over again. I always imagine her screaming from there, like just screaming in frustration that the mirror was shattered. So it always surprises me when I see that cutscene and she doesn't scream in anguish. Like it honestly feels like they just, like, I guess I just remembered it wrong. So these are supposed to be the sages, like the 7 sages, the Twilight Princess. Only they're not nearly as appealing as in Ocarina of Time because it's not like they're representatives of multiple different tribes. Like, they all look the same. They literally all look the same. They have all the same personality. They're so unimaginative. Aside from, I guess, their really creepy design that has their faces separated from their heads for no reason whatsoever. I'm assuming they're ghosts, but how is Ganondorf able to kill a ghost? 'Cause he killed one of the sages. And it's not like they're this way because they're ghosts already, because they look the same way in this cutscene where they're banishing Ganondorf. Because, yeah, Ganondorf just shows up because I guess they just want to really hurriedly foreshadow the fact that he's going to upstage Zant. Like, it feels like this cutscene was... But he was blind. When I was a kid, I assumed that meant that he was literally blind. But instead, they say he was blind to any danger. But I used to think that meant that he was literally blind. And, well, I guess that would have been pretty interesting. Like, he overcomes his disadvantage. He's a badass because he's not affected by the blindness. But no. Why are they doing this? Like, seriously? Why do they think sealing him is going to work? Like, he's the Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time, right? And, right, I guess, like, this is the child timeline where Zelda warned the king that Ganondorf was going to betray him ahead of time, and he magically believed her even though he didn't believe her last time because Link had beaten the game. Like, I guess Link was able to show the king the Triforce of Courage, and somehow that magically brainwashed the king into believing him and getting Ganondorf out. But the thing is that Twilight Princess never even explains, like, any of this backstory. Like, Ganon just comes out of nowhere. Like, the sages talk about him as if he just popped in out of nowhere. They don't even mention the fact that the king was, like, trying to befriend him to get the Gerudo on his side. Like, I don't think that the king was completely stupid in Ocarina of Time. I think that, like, it's just a political thing, a political alliance. Obviously, he doesn't like the Gerudo, but he thought maybe befriending the king would help, like with the Gerudo situation, I guess. But yeah, why aren't these the same sages from Ocarina of Time? Like, if this game wanted to have nostalgic references to Ocarina of Time, then why didn't they just have the Ocarina of Time sages, but I guess more grown-up looking, and obviously with actually good GameCube graphics, so they look even cooler. Instead, you have all these guys. They all look the same. I'm not sure what species they're supposed to be. And, like, I guess they're the successors of the 7 sages, but they kind of suck as successors because they're all the same species. Like, I guess that was the case in Link to the Past, in Twilight, and Four Swords Adventures too. Like, the 7 sages were all humans. But it just feels boring. And apparently these guys were also supposed to be, like, mentors to Princess Zelda. That must have been really creepy for her. Like these guys look really creepy with their faces disconnected from their heads. You'd think that would give a little girl nightmares. Why were they agreeing to be mentors to a little girl. Like, what did they teach her? Like math, science, chemistry? But yeah, this sucks. I'm not really sure how you're supposed to get over there. Like, I think that was the door to... I think that's the door that leads you out of the boss room. But how are you supposed to get over there? You can't walk over the pit like you can with the magical sandals in Ocarina of Time. Even then, they're really limited, so whatever.